Hello, my friends in the crypto space. What's up, guys? Node Investor here. Hope everyone is doing well. Thanks for joining me on this kind of impromptu live stream. I mean, I mentioned in my video yesterday I was going to do it. I planned on doing it earlier today, but I thought it was going to be a slow day in stock trading. Usually I wrap up my stock trading early on Fridays. I figured I would do the morning live stream, but it didn't happen. I ended up staying busy through most of the morning, just kind of freeing up now. And so I figured what better way to end the day, end of the week, than with hanging with you guys, talking charts, talking crypto. We're going to talk stocks too. We're going to talk some gold markets. We'll look at the charts there. And we'll do a few other things here. Quick look at the coin market cap, see where things are heading. And of course, the ever popular altcoin chart reviews. And I will do it a little bit differently today than I've been doing recently. I've been mostly looking at the BTC pairs and kind of seeing what's outperforming Bitcoin. But I'm going to go through many of the USD, Tether, USD, however you want to call it, equivalents, because a lot of them are setting up and they're looking pretty interesting here. And I also want to take some charts from you guys. And so hold off on those. I will let you know when I'm ready for those so I can take some notes and jot down the names. But what I want to look at when I do ask for charts, going to do a little bit differently. If you're an active trader, what was your biggest winner this week? Or what was your biggest loser this week? And let's take a look at those charts. Let's see how they played out. As they say, hindsight is always 20/20. But this is a good place to learn, good place to share ideas, and all that good stuff. Oh, nice. Roku. Roku's been a good one. So we'll definitely take a look at those. Hello from Wyoming. So I'm here in Arizona today. Beautiful, sunny spring weather. We have everybody from all over the country visiting us right now. Baseball games, spring training, all that stuff. I got to see Mark Cuban this week as well. There was a nice event going on here in downtown earlier this week. So got to go meet with some interesting people there, to say the least. But it's been a good, busy week, to say the least. Certainly crypto has been interesting. Bullish, but interesting. So let's get to it without further ado. One thing I mentioned, I just wanted to bring up here before I do the coin market cap. Just looking at this here, this is, let me go to the, this is the all, if we go to the last 2 years, and the reason I'm doing the last 2 years, because we are coming up on the 2-year anniversary of when I started this YouTube channel and when I kind of started the whole Node Investor stuff. And it's been a ride, right? Just look at this chart. Many of you guys have been with me since $30 billion market cap. Some of you guys were there to celebrate the $100 billion market cap crossover. And of course, the euphoric run and the smackdown and all the fun that we've had along the ways. And, just reflecting back at why I started this in the first place. And number one has always been just kind of educational, right? At the end of the day, now certainly, of course, everybody is now a technical analyst and everybody talks charts and all that fun stuff. But when I first started looking at YouTube, there was a few people, it was kind of lacking, didn't really fit the need that I was looking for. So I said, why don't I just do it, right, and start doing some videos? And you guys have, many of you have been longtime supporters of that. And so I just want to thank you as we approach that 2-year mark. It's been interesting, but hopefully I've met part of my original mission in terms of helping you guys understand the charting, trading, technical analysis aspect of this. The space, of course, is much more than that, but it's certainly a component that I'm passionate about and will continue to do so. And if you guys aren't getting anything out of it, then I'll just retire. I'll retire from the crypto space. And no, I'm just kidding. I won't. But as you know, I don't put commercials. I don't put ads on any of my videos on my website. Many of, not you guys, but many people email me, Twitter me, all that good stuff. Can I advertise on your channel? Can I sponsor? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I just have a flat, basic policy to that. And the answer is no, you can't. So you can't pay me to sponsor or talk about a particular project or anything like that. Even if I like it, I just won't do it. Keep it clean. And so if there's anybody out there asking for money, it's not me. So don't send them any money. I'm not going to talk about it on my video. But if you do want to support me if you do want to do a little bit more on the learning side, some of the things I do have to offer, of course, there's the video courses, nodeinvestor.com, under the training page. You can get more information there. And of course, the Node Insiders alert system, in my opinion, a tremendous value for what you get. You get the alerts, proprietary alerts, you get my analysis, you get watch lists, and you also get access to my training videos for $49 a month, a little bit cheaper if you pay for more time at a time. So that's it. That's the end of the commercial. No more ads from here going forward. Let's get to it here. So going back to the coin market cap, I mean, you can see there's been this flattening of the curve here, at least, right? Not the relentless drop, the crazy nosedive that we've seen, of course, which culminated really in that break below 6K down to that mid-December level, right at the $100 billion mark, before we finally started seeing some support, some buying stepping in. Now, it had been quite some time since I was buying fresh BTC, fresh crypto. But I did start buying here in this dip in November, and then, of course, adding some in December, and just kind of taking a dollar cost averaging approach, starting to finally add fresh capital to the space. But to be honest, I haven't added any new capital since about mid-February, just kind of been sitting tight. I was thinking we'd see another drop, and then I'd take that opportunity to start adding again. So we'll see where we go from here. Is it the bottom? Is it the bear? As I said, and we'll continue to say, it's going to be hindsight, very much hindsight. There's certainly many alts that have absolutely bottomed versus Bitcoin, and some have already up hundreds of percents. But we've known that for some time. But is Bitcoin done going down is anybody's guess. At this point, there are some pros and cons and arguments to be made for both sides. But right now, as we speak, the market cap sits right around that $140 billion mark, and it's just really been range bound, right, since December. So about 101 to 140. See if we can finally break out of here. There's good possibility that we are, because we're setting up for that. But of course, anything can happen. Looking at the crypto price changes on the week, again, this is the $100 million to $1 billion club. We'll look at the big caps here shortly, but looking at this range, some of the big winners: Ontology, Tezos up 65% in the last week. There were some other good ones here. Some of the big cap names: Cardano, of course, Raven, just crazy strong Raven this week. And many of the exchange tokens have been on fire and continue to show some good relative strength. So all in all, not a bad week. It was mixed, certainly not everything across the board's moving. It's not a, your alt season type of feeling, but there's pretty good movement out there. So, it's kind of, along those lines, I've kind of noticed that it's been a good like buy and hold type of market for the last couple of months, right? There's certainly been great trades to be had, but if you have a little bit more patience, I've noticed some of those are starting to work out pretty nicely. How long that lasts, of course, will just depend on whether or not we start to see some breakouts here, but it's been pretty interesting here over the last basically 2 months. And so looking at the big cap names, the big winner, Bitcoin Cash up, well, not Bitcoin Cash, Cardano as of today, and then Bitcoin Cash. So we'll look at those here. And everything else on the week, single digits, a little bit of plus, a little bit of minus. Things are really starting to tighten up. We'll see where they go from here. So let me look at the charts here, and then we'll get to some questions here. So we'll look at Engine. We'll do some of that. Let's see here. Buying resistance. Okay. Volume picking up second half of the range. 6K. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So if you're buying here at the lows, and it's your end game, right? What's your time frame and all that stuff? If you're a longer term believer and you're willing, you don't need the money like in 3 months or 6 months to pay some bills or something. That's my approach, right? If it's money or capital that I don't mind tying up for, if I have to wait a year, then it is what it is. I'm willing to do that. But of course, it's everybody's personal decision. If you're thinking this is a better move now because I need this money back here soon, then in my opinion, probably not capital you should be investing, and probably not capital you should be risking, right? So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, it's certainly starting to tighten up. So we'll look at the Coinbase BTC pair here first, and then we'll go to some of the others. But just to recap where we are, this is the daily chart. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a higher time frame point of view on a lot of these charts, just to kind of really set the picture of where we're at. So in the near term, of course, major resistance continues to be about that same level, basically 4,100. You can say up to about 4,200, these little wicks here. Price has just really been marching higher, though, since this low here in early Feb. There was a nice run. We've had this big pullback, and then since then, just been this very choppy, very slow, but still upward trend that's being established as it continues to run right into that resistance level. And so on the positive, the moving averages are still heading upward. Price all week has continued to close above the moving averages. And that's considering that over the weekend, it did break out finally from this range that I was watching here. And it's been holding that breakout point. Really, the number was basically 39.50. And you can see on a closing basis on the daily chart, that continues to hold. And it's also above the moving averages. The 10 EMA is above the 22 EMA. And so just from a technical perspective, the trend is still your friend. There's really no major sell signals. Now, yesterday certainly is not a positive looking candle. It's not a huge candle, right? It's not like this guy back here, but it's not necessarily a positive candle just because it was a big bearish engulfing candle. You had this attempt to break higher, was quickly sold into. Now, had it finished here at the lows, it would have been much uglier. It did recover some, did hold above the support level, did hold above the moving average. And so that's a little bit of a plus in favor of the bulls. But nonetheless, now this price range is going to be very key. Price is now going to be contained, from the high and the low of that day. And this is going to be your breakout zone, right? Which way does it go from here over the next few days? We're heading into the weekend. It could just kind of chop and flop here over the next few days during the weekend. In that scenario, we could continue to see some of the altcoins setting up and breaking out. So that's what I'm going to be watching here. So that's really the two key support and resistance levels that I'm keeping an eye on here is yesterday's low, which is basically just above 3,900, 3,915 or so. And then the high, that breakout attempt around $4,060. And so we'll see where we go from there. But right now, big picture still holding up. Now zooming in here a little bit, going to the shorter time frames, still looking not too hot, right? Still a little bit cautious here. You're still above this broader trend line, but this is looking not particularly good from that perspective, in the sense that we had this drop and it's just kind of been meandering its way up here. Now volume is kicking in a little bit on the buy side, which is good. If it was just drifting lighter and lighter volume the whole way up like it was up until yesterday, then that'd be a little bit more bearish. But that's just something I'm keeping an eye on here. It's basically right back to this resistance back here, and it's kind of pausing there a little bit right now. So still looking a little bear flaggish in my opinion, below the moving averages. They're just kind of sitting tight. So neutral here, but leaning more cautious from the BTC side. But when I start looking at some of the alts, which we'll take a look at here shortly, some of those are setting up really nice. There's some really interesting looking charts out there. And so it's kind of mixed, right? I'm thinking, well, those alts are kind of signaling they want to get going here. Maybe they just need a little bit of push, a little bit of confidence coming in from the BTC side of things. So we'll see how that gets going. And there's already names moving. So that's positive to see from that perspective. But right now, that's what I'm watching. If it starts to roll over, then of course, the first test is going to be, does it make a higher low above this wick yesterday? Ideally, that's what I'd like to see. A little bit of a pullback, maybe to like 39.50, make a higher low, and then the buying really kicks in there. That just kind of solidifies the low, as opposed to this kind of slow drift higher. Feels like a little bit of a bounce, but we've seen this before. We saw this big drop here, kind of rallied, little wick here, just took off after that. So it's kind of been the characteristic of the market here for Bitcoin as of late. So that's really it in the big picture. Let me go back to the weekly chart here real quick, and then we'll hop over to some of the alts. And it's important to maintain the big picture perspective on the weekly chart. On a closing basis, this is going to be basically your major resistance, just above 4,100. And look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, going on 5 green weeks in a row. How long can this streak last? 5 green weeks in a row. It's looking pretty good, and it's kind of coming to a head right here. I mean, if you look at, there's a confluence of activity that's going to happen right here. We're still below that 4,100 resistance. The 22 EMA on the weekly is going to be a key level to be watching. That's at 43.40 or so. And we're still above the 10 EMA now, still above this rising trend line. Price is starting to get really tight. Volume is starting to contract. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks. I thought, honestly, for sure, I thought we would have seen that red week already. So I'm kind of surprised we're still marching higher in the green weeks, going on week number 5 in the green. But if you're long Bitcoin, if you're bullish, this is great news. You can't complain about this. If you look at the BTC shorts, that continues to drop on the open interest side. Just continues to pull in here in the last couple of days, really starting to pull back. Was ticking up here for a while, but shorts are starting to cover again. So potentially adding a little bit of buoyancy to the price, putting a little bit of fuel in the fire there. We'll see where that goes here. So that's really it for BTC. Just not a whole lot of change, just sitting tight after that break we saw yesterday, just kind of really sitting here. But like I said, I am cautious on the short time frames. On the higher time frames, until things change, you got to give it the benefit of the doubt. We're still making a series of higher highs and higher lows, of course, within this big candle range here that we saw from that big drop back here. So things are still within that range, but moving up and moving positively over the last couple of weeks. So green is good. All right, so let's take a look at some of these here. I'm going to cycle through some of the other names real quick, and then we'll take a look at your charts. We want to do that, and of course, I'm going to cover the stock market, the gold market very quickly. I thought about doing a separate video on that, but I figured end of week, let's just do it all combined and get it done together. And if you guys have questions on that aspect, please feel free to let me know. I'm checking out the comments. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time and type a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so we did the BTC chart. Let me go through some of these USD pairs. So I do maintain a watch list of just kind of USD only pairs. And of course, we know Cardano has been moving up nicely. This chart has, been setting up positively for quite some time now, and just continues to move higher, finally breaking out of this little ascending triangle that I was watching here. Broke out early in the week and just continues to march higher. And today, seeing some very nice volume coming in, very good volume as this thing really pushes higher. You're kind of getting that buying frenzy starting to kick in, that momentum starting to come in. And so that's what you like to see. Generally, when they break out, I like to see that right away, but it's not unusual to see what we saw here, right? You get that breakout, kind of a slow pause, trickle back right to the breakout point, retests it, and then gets going. No doubt, it's been a choppy one. If you zoom in, if you look under the hood into the shorter time frames, this has not necessarily been a straight up easy ride. I mean, look at this choppy action, really tested your patience. This was actually that retest of the breakout point, a good secondary entry point if you missed the first breakout back here. And this would have been a nice secondary entry point. Volume was confirming, rallied, but then look at just moved higher and then just quickly gave it all back before just taking off again. So that, I'm sure, took out some stops if you were trading it. Maybe some folks got a secondary entry there and said, lucky break, I'm taking this entry here, and then you've been on this ride here. So no doubt has not been the cleanest chart, the easiest one. But like I said, if you're doing the little bit more of a buy and hold approach, the slower perspective, this has been a lot better if you've got the patience to sit through that. Not everybody does, and of course, it depends on your time frame, right? If you're looking to make position trades and hold for a couple of weeks or something, then that's the way to go. If you're doing quicker trading, day trading, whole nother story. You probably don't care about the longer time frames, right? So just the various approaches there, but nonetheless has been a strong mover and really starting to fan out now and get some momentum. Where does it go from here? It's kind of in no man's land now, right? We're in the middle of this range back in here. This was the first target for me on the way up, and the resistance level to be looking at here next is basically right here on the USD pair, just above that 6.2 cent mark. And I think we mentioned that back here when it looked like it was about to break out here, and I was looking at that line as my first target. Of course, pulled right back, made a higher low, and that's still the next target that I'm watching on the way up. And so that little window there continues to be the place to look at it here from the USD side. So that's really the next place. From there, it just kind of depends on what Bitcoin does, but 7 cents is basically the next big resistance level above this 6.2 mark. So right around there. Hopefully you can see the lines there. So that's Cardano. Let me go look at Cardano BTC. And of course, this one, I mean, the best part of this chart, in my opinion, the best setup entry was this little double bottom entry back in here. Let me clear all my stuff here. And so this is the way I was looking at it, right? I was looking at this double bottom back here, had this first touch, had this second touch back here, and didn't take that trade. But when it made this big, strong push here, that was kind of the signal, right? That big green candle coming off the lows. You've got confirmation on the volume side, and then had a little quick pullback to the 10 EMA. And from there, it's just been off to the races. On the daily chart, of course, in between along the way, there's been a lot of chop. But if you didn't want to take that, then the next level that I was watching was basically that 1200 level, which was right here. And that was really your confirmation that the double bottom was going to break out. And that's a whole nother trade. When I'm trading these double bottoms, I like to get in closer to the low and then take some initial profits here. But then if it does break out, taking it on throwback to the breakout point is a good secondary entry point. And that's how this one played out. So it's, been a very nice trade from that perspective, just playing out nicely on the larger time frames. And holding the moving averages never gave you any real big signals to sell. None of this selling has been on high volume along the way up. So has been pretty good from that perspective, and just still rocking, still going up. I'd be looking at the USD pair as my basis for the first target on the next resistance level. But from the BTC side, it's getting pretty close to the next target at 1500, and then above that, almost 1700 on the BTC pair. So all in all is good. I would caution RSI is getting a little bit overheated on this daily chart. So when the RSI gets pretty high in the high time frames, me personally, I generally like to start scaling out into that and taking some profits, or just start trailing it with a really tight stop, because it could keep going. Absolutely, the momentum's in its favor, the volume's there, but it's extended. Absolutely, yes. So it's just something to keep in mind here. All right, let's see here. What else do we got? Cardano. We'll look at Bitcoin, BCH on the BTC pair here is interesting. I know I want to take a look at the USD side, but I'm going to get back to that here shortly, just because this is next on the list. It's on the wrong list, by the way. But this one did have that breakout last week and didn't see a whole lot of follow through. It's been choppy, but look at this. 2 retests to the breakout point here. One the day right after, and then here yesterday during the little shakeout we saw, and now starting to move higher. And so very interesting to see that. Looks like it wants to go higher, in my opinion. What I'm going to be keeping an eye on here. If you go to the 4-hour view, finally breaking this little downtrend that it's been in here for the last couple of days. I would have liked to see a lot more volume on that, but nonetheless, it still looks decent from that perspective. Sorry about all my driving here. You've got 2 tests on that double bottom retest here, if you will. Breakout point tested there. This wick here tested again, and then breaking this downtrend, looking like it wants to get going. A little bit of volume's coming in. Again, I would like to see a little bit more than that, but certainly not a bad setup here. RSI is starting to tick higher. MACD histogram is ticking into the green. So good from that perspective, potential good risk reward entry. Now on the way up, how far could it go? Of course, first target's going to be this high, but there's just not a lot of resistance from here. You've got this whole level back here, but the first major wall that I'd be looking at is going to be this level up here. And so that's a big percentage move away. Not saying it gets there, but it's 25% would be that first target if it can clear some of this near-term resistance halfway up. So not a bad setup here. Good potential risk reward entry. Again, daily chart, something a little bit more like longer term, not necessarily a swing trade that you would trade for a day or two, but more like maybe for the next week or two, right? That type of thing. So something I'm looking at there. Let's see here. BCH from the USD pair setting up nicely. Looked like it maybe wants to break out of this little bull flag type of action that it was putting in. Pause. Yesterday was a good shakeout day. I'd be waiting for it to actually confirm and clear some resistance, which is right there. But if it can start closing above that, that looks pretty good. Potential secondary entry on this guy here. And from the RSI and all that stuff, it's not oversold. This is just kind of letting things cool off. So it looks pretty good from that perspective. Let's see here. BNB. Man, BNB. I was getting a little cautious on this one as it was starting to pull in a little bit. Found some support of that 22 EMA. Let me zoom in there for you guys. Yeah, NEO looks good too. I was looking at NEO. NEO's looking nice. Litecoin's looking nice. There's quite a few things looking nice there. So BNB found some support here at that 22 EMA, right at the pairs. It's found support there before. You can see back here, found support at that level. And so interesting to see that. Good recovery today. We'll see if we can keep going. If we look at it from the BTC pair, this was really where I was a little bit more concerned. Let me zoom in here. And I was watching this candle right here. breaking that trend line, rolling over yesterday, found some support at this horizontal price level, and now it's bouncing right into the bottom of that trend line. And so in a perfect world, this is how I would like to see it play out. I would like to see, give me one sec here. I'd like to see this guy right now that's rallying, if I can get my arrow, right? Bouncing into this trend line. I'd like to see it pause there, pull back, hold this low, and then make a nice little double bottom and then go and then take out that resistance there. That'd be a nice setup, good confirmation that that was the low. Could it just keep going from here? Absolutely, right? It could just say that was it. That was a low. Maybe I'm going to break out. But this is what I'd like to see. Ideally, this would make for a better risk-reward entry. So if I see something like that set up, I may take a shot at it. Something like that with a very tight stop just right below makes for a pretty low-risk entry at that point. So that's something to make note of here on BNB BTC pair. Let me skip through a few of these here. Was looking at Dash. I like the Dash BTC chart better. We'll come back to that one here. Looking at EOS. Still on my mind here, EOS. If you go to the daily chart, this is really the key level I'm watching. Basically 380 is that breakout point. But you can see it's making a series of higher lows still. Got a low there. This one here, this one held. And so still kind of meandering its way up, but it needs to hold. It's right at the 22 EMA right now. It needs to start moving higher. If it does, this little section back here is going to really start to form a nice ascending triangle base with your breakout very clearly defined, that horizontal point at $3.80. So I like this setup here, what I'm going to be watching over the next couple of days. Hopefully it doesn't break out over the weekend because I'm hoping to take some time off and not do a whole lot of trading. But we'll see how this one plays out. Ascending triangle setting up on that USD pair. Let's look at it from the BTC side real quick. Still needs to break this downtrend. Ultimately, that's what's going to be my signal on this guy is, can it break this downtrend? Hasn't had the oomph yet, and this 10 EMA is potentially about to roll over below the 22 EMA. That'll be negative, especially since price is staying below both moving averages here. So let's see if that can quickly recover here. All right, looking at Litecoin. Let me jump ahead here. Litecoin's looking strong still. I mean, just marching higher. It's got these pullbacks, but every pullback makes a higher low. This last one here found support at the 22. This wick found support at the 22. These last 3 days so far have closed above the 10 EMA, which was also this last little breakout point here above that $58 mark. And so Litecoin's holding above 58, looking pretty good here. We'll see if we can get going, get another leg. This consolidation has been very healthy in the sense that it's kind of let things cool off a little bit. This RSI is right back here to the 60 range, which is good. Things were getting a little extended here for a while, a little too excited, and now this is kind of pausing, sitting tight. So liking the way this one's looking here. If you go to the weekly chart, I mean, it's had a very strong move off the lows, right? The lows here in December around 24, 25 bucks. And of course, more than doubled since that. And it is lining up with this little bit of resistance back here, right? This little confluence, this last consolidation where the selling showed up before the big break lower. And we're right back there now. So it'll be interesting to see if it can break through that wall of resistance. This is multi-month. This is the weekly chart. So you're looking at basically August through October, right, is when it was making that little confluence there. That's where it's resting right now. So see if it can break out. But all in all, holding up pretty well. So no complaints there. Oh, let's see here. NEO's looking nice. Very similar to Cardano in the sense that had that kind of rising low ascending triangle base that we just saw in the Cardano USD pair. Very similar price action here that I'm watching on NEO. Has so far held these retests of the lower trend line. And above this line right here, I mean, yes, there's this action right here. But above that, you know, you've got this wick back, or not this wick, this long candle, this big fast break. It's a little bit of a vacuum there. And so that'd be the first target on the way up. And so I'd be looking at 12 to 13 bucks on the way up. And then from there, I mean, ultimate target would be 15. But at that point, you're talking about, that's basically the breakdown point where Bitcoin dropped from 6K. Can it get there? It would really surprise me. But it's looking pretty good here in the near term. Looking at it from the BTC side, very similar price action. I was looking for this thing to hold this trend line. I'm going to count that as a hold. It did dip below the trend line. Yes, it did. But generally speaking, that's a hold for me. And so I'm liking this. Now this is key support. So this has got a hold as far as on a closing basis, but it is setting up for a breakout, looking pretty good. So NEO BTC looks good there. All right. Let's see what else we got here. We did Litecoin. We did EOS. I'll do a couple more USD pair ones, and then I'm going to hop over to stocks and gold, and then we'll go start walking down your guys' list. So that way we can wrap it up early. So OMG setting up for another breakout here, looking pretty nice right at the line. You can see this resistance right there. That's basically $1.64. So anything above that starting to look pretty good. You got a little bit of a wick here. I'm not going to put too much weight on that, but that would be your first target. That's 193. Then above that, a lot of open space. So very interesting setup here, especially in the long term, right? Just this big, long base, multi-month since December. And so many of these names are doing that. They're just kind of putting these long time lows, getting really set up for some potential breakouts if Bitcoin can get going above that 4K level. So OMG, ONT. So Ontology, this was looking pretty good, but it's already a little extended in my opinion. It's kind of in no man's land, still marching towards that next target up here, this yellow line that I've had marked out. Nice recovery. I mean, this is basically the break from 6K on Bitcoin. Look at it's just basically fully recovered most of that move, getting a little extended. You know, you could say it's kind of in no man's land now with the first target coming in view. So I'd be cautious. I'm not sure I'd be chasing it, but it's still a very strong name here. All right, some of the weak ones. Tron still continues to lag. I know a lot of you guys are following Tron and ask me about it all the time, but until this trend changes, I'm not too inclined to do any bottom picking, to be honest. I just bet on the strength. I mean, the names that are putting in these lows and starting to turn up the right side, I'm more inclined to look at those, right? You look at something like Ripple. Maybe Ripple's putting in a low. I mean, it's certainly looking much more positive, but it's still lagging, right? So Ripple's getting real tight here. I'd be interested in watching how this one does. But if you look at it from the BTC pair, right, that's what I'm watching. Making lower lows, lower highs. You got these quick one-day pumps, but just a laggard, right? I mean, that's just no other way to put it. It's just a laggard, just continues to drop. So I'm always looking at what's outperforming Bitcoin on the way up. That'd be something a little bit more interesting for me. One I do like here is Monero. Monero is setting up very similar. I mean, all these charts are starting to look real similar, and the reason I'm looking at the daily chart is to kind of set that tone, right? The big picture. They're all right up against some long time resistance, just like Bitcoin is, and they've been making a series of higher lows, and the price is starting to get very tight here, right below resistance. It's primed for a breakout, but it's also primed for a failure and a retest of the lows. So not necessarily saying jump the gun on any of these, but we are coming to a head. It's getting pretty interesting here. If you go to the BTC chart of Monero, I like this one. I'm watching this one for a breakout trade, see if it can move higher. I was hoping it would pull back a little bit further and make a better entry here at the lower end of the range, but it's still sitting tight. So Monero looking pretty interesting for a breakout trade there. Let me see if I can find any more. Ethereum Classic, strong, but yeah. ETH sitting tight. That's ETH Kraken. Let me go to here's ETH Tether on Binance. You can see this one's sitting a little bit tight. Not giving you the higher rise quite like Bitcoin is doing, but still sitting tight here. So we'll see. This is really the level to be watching. If it could break out above that 142 range, would look a lot better. So for now, I'm going to sit tight until that one can clear 142. All right, so let me see what else. I'm going to take a look at the stock market here today just because it was pretty crazy the last 2 days. Yesterday, if we zoom in here, let me go to the 5-minute view here because that's generally what I trade on the stock side of things. But yesterday was just right out the gate, boom. Remember, the day before was the FOMC meeting. This was the big spike, no more rate changes, what everybody expected. And then, of course, they started talking. Prices dropped a little bit. But yesterday we saw some strong follow-through. Just everything was moving. The big cap names were moving. Huge day. And then today was basically the opposite. I mean, just gapping down at the open. You can see with here, there's this gap. This gray area is the pre-market. So you can see where we closed. There were the lows here today at the open, just this big gap. And just couldn't get going. Just right off the open, boom, big drop, bouncing, just stair-stepping its way higher at the close, basically closed at the low of the day. And so looking pretty interesting here now that it's turning the corner. This daily chart has formed a little bit of a reversal pattern, right? I mean, it gapped down and it finished lower. So just going to look interesting. The volume here was very high today. Something to make note of. We've seen this before, these little pullbacks. Is this another higher low? Maybe. There are some divergences starting to show up here. If you look at the RSI here, it is looking a little bit weak. You look at some of the other indices here, the Russell 2000, that one is lagging, has already been lagging here. You can see it's already making lower lows, made a lower high. Now it's making a lower low. So that one, the small caps are leading the way down. The Qs have been the strongest on the way up and still holding up very well, still above the 10 EMA. So certainly some mixed markets out there, but very interesting day today. Basically selling across the board. You can see here this was the way down. Some of the stocks I traded here, Goldman Sachs, I was telling the group earlier today that today was my biggest day in terms of profitability on the stock market side. And my biggest trade on the day was Goldman Sachs. And, you know, I don't really care usually what I trade. I'm just kind of agnostic. I just look at the charts and, you know, of course you read the news and there's earnings and all that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, whatever. But there's just something that feels good about banking it when you're shorting Goldman Sachs. There's only like a few stocks that feel good when I make money shorting them. The other one is Facebook for whatever reason. When I do well shorting Facebook, it just, I don't know, it just feels good. But everything else was whatever. Did a little bit of shorting on the Nike side of things. Had some small drifts lower. ConAgra was a good long today, ConAgra Brands. And so traded that one pretty well. Got out maybe a little too early, but it pretty much hit my target. My target was 27. I saw it stalling here at 26.90 or whatever. Decided to get out of the way, and that was a good exit because it just smacked down right into the close. But ConAgra was good. Tiffany was good here as well. Just kind of sat tight at the end of the day, but had a nice strong run early in the morning. So there was definitely some stuff moving up, but for the most part, the better trades were on the downside. So we'll see where this goes on Monday. I'm looking at a few names for Monday to see if it's just a one-day thing or if the market's going to start a new trend and suddenly we're going to start to see some more downside. So if that's the case and you're interested in learning more about that, I did a video. I'll see if I can find it. I did a video, I don't know, in October maybe or November, talking about how to capitalize on the downside of things when markets are doing this really quickly, because generally when they drop pretty fast. And so generally, you make just as much as you did on the way up here, but in like a third of the time. And so that's what I like to do. And so there's a few names that I'll do. I'll short the IWM generally with something like a TZA, which is a leveraged bear. You can short the gold stocks with something like a dust. And so check those videos out. I've kind of posted those out there. Speaking of gold, let's take a look at that. GDX looking positive here. I'm liking this guy. Let me clear this. So the GDX, which is the gold miners, the big cap miners, has just been on a tear lately, right? Just running higher. Now, it did get a little extended back here. It needed a pause, and this pause has been constructive. If you look at gold, I'm going to just pull up the GLD, which is the gold ETF. Similar action, pause, a little bit of a rally. So still looking good. But if you look at the big picture, gold, big picture, you go to the weekly chart. This is really what I'm watching here, right? So I'm just kind of watching this 1350 level, which has been multi-year, back since 2013, right? Multi-year resistance, been very range bound. And, we'll see if this is the low, and now we're going to start moving higher. That's going to be the first test. Above that, 1375 or so, things could get pretty interesting. But the way I see it, gold is a currency. And so if the gold market is rocking, then that means potentially the US dollar index is starting to top, and maybe this is going to start rolling over. So that hasn't happened yet. And so far, gold prices are staying pat, sitting tight, but something I'm definitely watching. Now, looking at silver, the SLV has been the laggard. I continue to prefer GLD or gold over SLV at this point, and that's just kind of been my preference still. And I'm just usually trading the gold side of things. Now, I'm a big fan of silver longer term. I think maybe it's putting a good double bottom. But right now, this is more of an industrial metal rather than a commodity currency like gold is. And so if the economy gets hit, a lot of times this one does take a little bit of a hit too as well. So just something I'm watching. But if it breaks this downtrend, it'd be a lot more positive on the silver market. See if we can break above, what is that, $15 basically on the SLV. Actual silver spot prices are already higher than that. If you look at silver, sorry, Not that one. So here we go. Silver spot's about 15.43, so that's basically getting above $16 would start to turn this trend. Yeah, I got to extend my line. Look at where it's paused, right at the line. It's funny how that happens. So we'll see where that goes. But for now, my preference is either gold or GDX or GDXJ, which is the gold junior miners, but just as strong, generally outperform a little bit more on the way up. So, all right. Let me see here. What else we got going on here? Mountain Gox events. Yeah, I do follow those a little bit. I mean, so today, like, you know, a Mt. Gox event for us would be something like Binance getting messed up or getting banned or something. Like, you know, at the end of the day, that's the worst case scenario. You don't want to even think about that. But it's one of the reasons I continue to maintain several brokers and several accounts, and some online, some cold storage, because there's just counterparty risk. And, you know, better safe than sorry, as they say. But of course, if anything happened, the price of all cryptos would be smacked pretty good. The good news is, you know, back when Mt. Gox happened, I mean, it was like 80% of all Bitcoin trading volume or something ridiculous, right? There's not a single exchange now that's like anywhere near as concentrated as it was back then. Do I have any 10-year trades? No, other than Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin's really the only hodl thing for me. And I'm assuming you're talking crypto. Let's see here. I'm reading some comments here, so sorry for the... You're allergic to stock markets? Oh, man, I'm sorry. Didn't see that. Here, let's get back to crypto. I think I'm done with the stocks. I'm not sure if there's any other ones here that we want to look at. Apple, maybe a little extended here, had a good run. Has had a nice run. If you look at something like Apple, let me go to the daily chart. I mean, one, you think about how big the company is, how large cap it is, and for a company that big to move this strongly since the start of the year, at least until yesterday, Apple was up almost 40%. I mean, wow. Incredible, right? Something like Amazon, not quite as strong, but still, when you're talking nearly $1 trillion markets, that's amazing to see that happen. So there's been some good ones. CGC is one I'm watching here for you cannabis players. CGC has been interesting. Had a failed breakout of this little flag attempt, but still on my radar. So what I'm watching is really this right here. So see if we can break out. Starting to roll over right now. See where that one goes. And then, of course, Chronos is the other one. Sitting tight, breaking lower today, breaking some support. So we'll see where those go. All right. Let's go back to the crypto ones here. Yeah, the crypto market cap isn't even $1 trillion. Nowhere near it. 130, 140 billion. That's like how much Apple earns in 3 months. Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Really puts things into perspective. All right, so let's get through a few more of these here. Now, remember at the beginning of the stream, and if you were just joining us, I asked a question. What was your biggest trade of the week? Or what was your biggest losing trade of the week? Let's take a look at some of those here. See if we can learn a little lessons here. So some of the other ones that are rocking on the way up, some of you guys may say Raven. That's been one of the biggest ones of the week here. So looking at Raven coin. Wait, why am I on this chart here? Raven. Looking at Raven here. I mean, this was already had a crazy strong move going into this, and this the daily chart pulled right back to the 10 EMA. Yes, it was very extended. This was a good cool off, let things kind of settle out, and look, it just kind of rounded out a base and really got going. The early signal was really on the 4-hour chart here, and some of the folks in the Slack group were talking about this one, and you know we were looking at this going, hey, maybe it's finding a little bit of a bottom, making some higher lows. This was the higher low we were looking at, and then it started to roll out. Didn't quite clear this resistance. And so it gave you multiple chances to jump back on this guy here if you missed that first one. And this was really the first signal right here. Pulled back, gave you another chance. Could have jumped in there with the tight stop or wait for the next final breakout. And then after that, just really took off, got going. And even from the breakout point, if you would have waited until this day, say you bought the very top of that day, at the peak, still up 56%, not too shabby. So looking pretty good there. Raven continues to go high. Now, would I get in here at this point other than maybe for a day trade or a quick trade? I wouldn't. Feels a little extended now, and we'll see where it goes from here. Engine. All right, let's take a look at Engine. Engine sitting tight here. Now, let's kind of set the picture here. Remember, Engine went up 500% in like a month. Okay, not a month. More like almost 3 months. 2 months. Oh, wait, no, I did. This is the 4-hour view. February 25th through March 9th. Okay, in a week. And so it needed to consolidate. You get these quick pumps. Generally, those are sold into because you got folks that bought late and now they're hoping for a little spike to sell into. And you're seeing that. But eventually, there's that price discovery. Things will settle out. But the key here is just how tight it's getting. If it continues to hold up above this, great. But a break below this, you can see a pretty quick spike lower, another leg lower. This is going to technically turn into a lower high if that happens. On a quick trade, though, I mean, it's range bound, so that's really the range I'm looking at. 4,900 on the upside, 4,500 on the downside. Anything in between that, really don't want to do anything with it, but on a breakout out of that range, could make for a little bit of a quick trade there. On the big picture, though, weekly chart, I mean, look at this. Just went parabolic. It's really just kind of settling out. It needs time to consolidate. That's simply there's just no other way around it. And best case scenario would be just kind of chops and around in this range for another month or two, right? And doesn't have this big collapse. If it just fully retraces, generally very negative. But if it starts to hold up here, then you get some strong hands holding it, generally a good sign. And you can see some longer term continuation over the big picture. Like you're talking now in second half of the year at that point. That's the best case. That's what you want to see. But near term, maybe tradable. Yeah, not another 500% from here, but we'll see. What do I consider a tight stop? What do I consider a wide stop? That's a good question. It will vary depending on the coin because, like, say if you're trading something like a Bitcoin or an ETH, right, where your average true range on the coin is not that much, a tight stop on that guy might be 2 to 3% or something, right? But on a NEO or on a small cap, on an Engine, like you can't do 2 or 3%. Like that's like a 5-minute wiggle, And so it just will really depend on that. Generally, though, when I say tight stop, I'm talking more from a technical perspective, right? So, like, let's say I wanted to short here, and this is just totally fictitious. I'm not saying I'm doing this, but let's say I wanted to short here on NEO, right? A tight stop would basically be at the top of this consolidation, right? You're getting in very close to that. You're shorting into resistance. And if it gets above that, you're basically saying, I'm wrong. I'm out of the way. Is there a chance you get wicked out? Yeah, absolutely, right? That's the nature of it. But at that point, you've got a high R multiple because even if it just drops down to here, that's a 2.6 R multiple, meaning, you're making $2.6 for every dollar you're risking, right? That's a tight stop versus, hey, the real stop is, as long as it doesn't clear this guy, I'm still technically right. But at that point, you're talking a much wider stop for your potential profit. And so it's always about the ratios, really. That's kind of what I look at it. What's the upside versus the downside and the ratios. I don't have a general rule. No. I mean, the way you adjust for how much you're risking is your position size, right? There's a formula. It's not I will only risk 3% or I will only risk 7% or anything like that. It all comes down to what makes sense logically, like where in the chart will tell me if I'm wrong and how far away is that from the price. And then I adjust my position size to make that match. So regardless if I'm taking a 3% stop, a 5% stop, a 10% stop, the net value that I'm risking, whether it's dollars or BTC, it's always the same. Because it's just my position size changes. So I hope that makes sense. And that's hugely important, by the way. So if you guys do have access to these videos, if you're a subscriber and you haven't already, you absolutely must watch this risk reward ratios and position sizing videos, because that's basically what I go into. I talk about the formula, the math that I use that for, and this will make a lot more sense when you start talking about that. You know, when I first started trading, one of the books that I read early on was How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill, right? And I've talked about this book a lot because he had some really good principles and some good ideas and some very fundamental things about, you know, limiting your losses and all that stuff. Where I disagreed with him almost completely, and this is a genius, by the way. I am in no way anywhere near the stratosphere or the realm of this guy, William O'Neill. I mean, just pure genius. But his system is you will always have a 7% stop, and when your stock runs close to 30%, take some profit. And that to just have an arbitrary, I always stop out at X percent and I always take profit at X percent, is just makes no sense. Makes no sense, because everything should be based on the chart. You should have a target. You should have a risk reward ratio. And if it doesn't line up, then you just don't take the trade, right? So this is a very good book. I love his system. But from that perspective, his risk management, I'm like, yeah, that just doesn't work for me. So I have it a little bit more of a formula, right, where it actually makes sense, where you're saying how much am I risking up front, and then I make my position size. And I do the same with my stocks, right? Sometimes that means I take a 100 share position. Sometimes that means I take a 50 share position. And sometimes that means I may take a 1,000 share position. It just really depends on my downside and my upside in the math. So is there a coupon for my program? There isn't. I did run a special the entire month of February. I had a 30% off. I'll see if I can consider doing that here again in the next few months or so, but there is not right now at this point. We're looking to set up a free trial for this alert system, which will have access to the videos. And so I'll let you guys know when that's out, and that'll include some sort of free trial period. All right, let's take a look at a few more. What was your biggest winner? What was your biggest loser? Let's see what's on the watch list while you guys do that. Yeah, that's a good system, right? Like if there's a number that you're just not comfortable with and you say, hey, you know, the logical place on the chart is 8%, and I'm just not comfortable with that, then yeah, that's totally cool, right? It's just one of those things where you have to define your own system, your own risk management rules. And that's great, you know. Cool. Thanks for the feedback there, man. Appreciate it. So let's see what's on the list here. Looking at the Binance. I'm going to filter this real quick. And kudos to Brandon and Michael, if you guys are listening, members of our Slack group. These are the guys that really helped put this whole thing together. You know, it's a team effort. I come up with some of the ideas and all that, but they're doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So many thanks to those gentlemen. All right, so Cardano, GSR has been on here. Wabi, oh my goodness, there's a name from yesteryear. Basic Attention, we'll take a look at that. VeChain's been still looking pretty good. Zilliqa, some names out there here. What were some of the names I put in my last update? How do you pull up that risk reward? Yeah, so if you go to TradingView here on your menu on the side, there is a position, right? Short or long. I usually have the long here in my favorites toolbar, but if you want to do the short one, you just do that. And what you do is you click on it, you click where you want to buy or whatever, and then you just adjust. You can do templates and all that too, but I just manually will do it. And so it'll just tell you, right, if I bought here and I put this was my stop would be 3% or whatever, and my upside would be this. And really the number that I look for is this R multiple right here, right in the middle. I have a 2 minimum on my stock trades. I generally have a 3 minimum, and that's the magic number for me. I don't care what the percentage is generally on the up or the downside, obviously to an extent, right? If it's like way down here, that's just not going to make sense. But I don't really care what that number is as much as I care what the R multiple is, because then I say, hey, if I'm willing to take this trade, then okay, let's say I got to risk $17, per side, or 17 cents, whatever. Then how much can I buy? and still be within my rules type of thing. So, all right, BAT. And let's see here. What time is it? Oh my goodness, we've been going almost an hour. We'll do a few more, and then I will call it a day, call it a stream, call it a week. And I usually the way it works is as soon as I'm done and I log off and I decide to call it a day and go home and relax and do something, the market gets crazy. So fair warning. So basic attention. I really like the longer term view here, the daily chart. Now near term, this is looking really good here, to be honest. Had this nice run up here early part of March, has since been pulling back here during this latest pullback, and looks to maybe be finding some support here at this moving average pair right at the 22 EMA, the 10 EMA. And so ideally, this would be a good kind of bull flag entry if it starts to confirm. You've already had 3 green candles in a row, so that's usually a good enough signal for me. And where I would put my stop would be something like right at the low of that swing low, or maybe just right below it. And then there you go. That's a 2R multiple just to the resistance point. Usually a good enough trade for me. 12% upside, 6% downside. And then, of course, above that, if it could break out, it's all extra, right? So that's an interesting setup here. BAT's looking pretty good here. The volume patterns have been good. Strong move up. Very light volume here on this consolidation. Not a lot of selling pressure just yet. So BAT BTC. Got to put it on the list here for further review. Let's see here. So Raven, nice. Congrats. You got 68% on Raven. Good trade. Factum, you did 100% on Factum. Let's go take a look at Factum. That's great. Factum. There's a name from yesteryear. You didn't do 100% on Factum. Remember back here? Yeah, not quite ready yet. Let's see here. I don't know what, I mean, it's had that big run. It's just really been drifting since then. Give you one little few days of quick trade here, but not quite ready yet. Whoops. Let's see what else. Hit that like button. Thank you. We didn't do lumens. Stellar lumens. Let's take a look at it on both the BTC side and the dollar pair here. So looking at the BTC side, I mean, it was just looking toppy to me just because it hit this spot twice. And the fact that it actually overshot and then pulled right back in is generally bearish, sweeps the stops, hits some buy stops, and then just gets sold right into failed breakout. So you're seeing it top. It's right back at this support. It did undercut, bouncing a little bit. So we'll see if that holds. But right now, I'm leaning bearish on this one. But on the daily chart, to be fair, it's still technically holding up, right? It did hit this resistance twice, pulling back, still holding above the EMA. So, I mean, if, you know, from a longer term picture, I guess you can't complain too bad. Volume on the selling wasn't crazy compared to the buy side volume. That was good. So we'll see. Me personally, I'd rather just wait for it to settle out around here. And if it starts to get closer to here, then maybe look at a breakout trade at that point. I'm not so sure I want to buy the dip on this one. But if we look at it from the USD side, you know, looks a little bit stronger here, pulled back, holding that moving average pair, maybe getting going. Again, it'd be more of a breakout trade for me because the first trade on lumens for me, going back to the BTC side, the first trade was really this, right? This range trade, this edge-to-edge trade, right? Where it looked like maybe it was finding a low, took a couple shots at it there, failed, got stopped out, but then it finally did break out. And that was really the trade for me, was basically this breakout up to the top of the range. And then it just said, I'm done, got out of the way. That was it. Now, where it goes from here is anyone's guess. So we'll see. But I'd rather take it as a breakout. That's just me, though. This is by no means financial advice. This is an educational channel. You guys give me ideas. Come on now. Help me out. Tube. BitTube, a little bit of a double bottom there. Nice. It's already had a good run, though. Look at this bad boy. Nice. 140% on the tube. But it is approaching a major resistance point here. It's not quite there yet, but targets in view. Can you check Cardano again? Yeah, we looked at Cardano. I think we did pretty extensively on Cardano. Basically, to summarize, I mean, first target's in view here on the BTC pair at 1500, and then above that, it'd be closer to 1700. I'm looking at it more from the USD side. It is extended, right? It's had a strong run. The momentum's in its favor, and this is a big breakout of an ascending triangle, so could keep going, right? I'm not saying there's any sell signals. I'm not seeing any, at least. But you know, next target is basically that 6.2 cents and then closer to 7 cents. This is the major wall right here. Let me clear this line. Right, that's kind of the major target right here. Just like ontology, right? It's fully retraced, getting really close to that big target. You know, that's kind of a major wall on the upside. So similar to there on Cardano. Good courage to show your browser history. I'm not too worried. Don't worry. It's mostly all stock and news stuff here. So, but I'm sure some people would not want to do that live. Just saying. That's funny. All right. Looking at VeChain. VeChain's looking pretty good. It did break out already and gave you a little bit of a secondary pause right there. Let me zoom in here. So you can see it had that breakout, little bit of a consolidation, small little ascending triangle base. Hopefully you guys can see that right there. Just kind of riding the moving averages higher. Look at this shakeout bar though. Wham. Spike up, spike down. But holding up so far. Big volume on that move. We'll see how that does. It's kind of set a little bit of a range here. How's it look on the shorter time frames? Yeesh. Yeesh. You know, I mean, that was a big sell-off yesterday. If we look at VeChain BTC, holding up a little bit better. And that was really kind of the trade, the breakout here. And first target in view, but closer to that 155, 157 level, in and around there. So we'll see. Still looking good though. I mean, it's kind of just marching along. It's put in this big low here, so very nice. If it gets another throwback here to either the moving averages or above this point here, could make for a nice secondary entry point on that daily chart. So a pullback would be something to look at on VeChain. IOTA, I didn't cover IOTA yet. IOTA was looking like it was about to blast through yesterday and smack down from the line here, but we'll see. It's still on my radar. It's, you know, it's not looking bad. I mean, you had that big volume spike on the way up, pulling right back, and look at where it's pulling right back to. Let me zoom in so you guys can see that. Here we go. So I'm going to be curious to see if this holds. It's pulling right back to this prior resistance right there. See how it's kind of right back to that base, finding some little bit of support so far. And it's also lining up with this EMA pair, the 10 EMA and the 22 EMA, that little gap in between the two. And so we'll see if we can turn the corner. Not something I'm going to preempt per se, but if it starts to show some support here and you start to see some buying pressure showing up again, maybe a signal that it wants to break out. So something I'm going to be watching out here for. If it does break out, first target is this next level, about 85.34. So it's going to be your first target. Now looking at it from the USD side, how's that look? Saya, we'll take a look at Saya. Storage was the biggest winner. Saya was the biggest loser. Interesting. Same industry on those two coins. So we'll go see there. But yeah, IOTA USD. It's, I mean, similar action setting up here. This one actually looks much stronger. Had that big bullish engulfing day yesterday, which is what got on my radar. I mean, that is just positive. Yes, it's pulling back. Yes, it paused at that moving average or at the resistance back here. Definitely worth paying attention to. It's just pulling right back to the 10 EMA at this point. Similar to the USD pair, holding above this prior resistance so far, right? Of course, that could always change, but for now, that's looking interesting here. So again, another little bit of a confluence of support starting to show up right there. Ultimately, needs to clear to confirm, but this might not be a bad secondary entry. A little bit of a low risk entry here on the smaller time frame. So interesting. One I'm going to have to pay closer attention to here. All right, so let's see here. So Saya Coin, I haven't looked at that guy in a while. Let's zoom out. These low set names. Sia Coin kind of still lingering here at the lows. Broke some support. Looked like it was trying to get going here, but rolling over a little bit here. Storj. Oops. Oh, that's a spiky one. But hey, if you catch some of those moves, man, they could be quick. You got to be quick on those. Wow. Yeah, it's really tough for me to trade those unless you're doing like a day trade or something. But congrats. If that was your biggest winner, good job. Let's see what else here. Wax. Wax. Where's Wax on Trex? I want it on Bitfinex. Here we go. Wax. Strong move this week. Yeah, it's just been edging higher. Nice move. What percentage was that here? I'm going to call it from this breakout. Peaked out at around 58%. Cool. Good stuff on Wax. Maybe setting up a little bit of a secondary entry here. You got a support zone starting to form. See if it holds. Let's see here. Civic. Tezos, nice. Tezos was one of the biggest winners this week. Civic. Big spike here early in the week here. Nice, almost little saucer base, you know, got a little kind of cup handle type of action. Not a clean one, but still holding up. See how it looks on the daily chart. Just kind of been marching. Look at those wicks. Wow. There's some big spikes right there, man. See here. Kraken's got it on BTC. Nice. There's your Tezos trade. A little bit of a flag forming here right now. Just run up. See if we can break below that. Or above that. Not below that. Not if you're on it. Nice trade, though. Good job. Again, one of the biggest winners. One of the biggest gainers on the week. All right, we'll do a couple more here, guys. Going for just a little bit over an hour. Thank you, guys, for being here as always and the support and the good comments. Let's see here. Let me do this here. I'm going to do a couple through this guy here. So see, these are some of the names I mentioned earlier in the week. We looked at most of these, I think. We didn't look at Dash. Let's go to Dash. Dash BTC. Look at that. Nice little potential flag forming again on Dash. Dash is going on the list. Well, it's already on the list, but it's going higher up on the list. So Dash, see if they can break out of that here. Nice. Had that quick move last time. And this is funny because it's almost the same type of pattern, right? So this last one, you had the breakout. Of course, this was a very long, drawn-out consolidation, but it held above the breakout point. Finally got going, sold into that, and now it's just been consolidating. I've been looking at this one for a potential secondary entry, but this may be getting close. So going to be watching this one here. Dash. Interesting. All right. See if it holds the low there. What were your biggest wins or losses for the year? For the year? You mean like just 2019? Let me think. What was my biggest win? I've had, I mean, Dash was good. Dash was probably one of my bigger wins last week. There was Cardano. I did not hold as much BNB through that entire move as I would have. That would have been the biggest win probably. Let's see here. Omise Go was probably one of my this week at least. OMG BTC. Or no, that was last week. And I had that big spike. I just got a lucky fill there. I literally sold at 424 on Omise Go. And I had jumped in here at the breakout, just popped, pulled all the way back. Still looking good though. It's hard to say in the last 3 months. I'm trying to think. I do so many trades, it's ridiculous. stock trades, and just kind of depends. I know. You asked us. Fair question. You know, Icon, maybe. Icon was probably one of my better ones. I'd have to look, go pull up the logs. Speaking of logs, man, I am like way overdue slacking on my trading crypto videos. I need to provide an update for you guys. I didn't even do it in February. I was going to, and there's just no excuse. At the end of the day, for lack of a better word, I'm going to be honest. It's just being lazy. Oh, man. It's just, you know, there's just no excuse. I'm just being lazy. And it's just sometimes, you know, like today at the end of the week, maintain crypto logs, maintain stock trading logs, and usually I'll spend the weekends doing like reviews and trade reviews and journal updates and scanning some stuff for the following week. And, you know, by the time you're done with all that, after staring at the screen for 12 hours, you kind of just don't want to record anymore. I'll just be honest with you guys. When did I start trading crypto? My first trade in crypto, I'm going to probably say, was late 2015. It's probably when it started. And actually was into, quote unquote, into crypto before that, but it was mostly from the mining perspective. Have you ever had your stop loss not hit? Yeah, that's happened. That's been a tough lesson to learn. And most exchanges have like a trigger and then a limit price. On an illiquid small name, if you don't put a wide enough margin between the trigger and the liquid and the trigger price or the limit price, it'll skip right through your stop. So, you know, that's happened. Luckily, it hasn't been like devastating, but it has happened. Hasn't happened lately. I've learned my lesson a long time ago on that. So usually I hit my stops when they get stopped out. So it's not usually an issue. If you're using a third-party system, like if you're running trades through like a CoinGee API or something, that could be a little fickle sometimes, and it may not send your order across and then you get stopped out. That's really annoying. Mining, I don't do any mining anymore, so it's kind of hard to talk about it. I was doing GPU mining for a while. It's been a long time since I've done that. All right, I think we're good, guys. I think we've done most of the ones I wanted to look at here. We covered these. Let me see if there was any more on the watch list that were interesting. We did Cardano, Misigo, NAM. Storage, Mana. Somebody asked about Mana. Project I do like, by the way, long term. Still got me some Mana. So looking at Mana, this one's been an interesting one because it did have that quick spike here. I believe this was like news driven. This was one of the phone partnerships or something. And, you know, just that spike kind of gave it all up, held some support, but just kind of has been drifting higher here, looking pretty good. Right back at that resistance level here. Will be interesting to see if this one can break out, but it's setting up maybe for potential breakout here. Thanks, man. Have a good weekend. Yeah, it is a super cool project. Neo's doing something or trying to do something similar to that Neo world, but Mana is really cool. Let's see here. You just joined the program. Does it have entry stop loss info? It does. If you go to the, oh, you mean on the trades themselves? Not yet. Not on these analysis ones. Not yet. We're looking to add another feature where we'll kind of put like some trade examples and entries and exits and stuff. But obviously on the trading course, if you want to talk about it or learn about it, there's that. And then for those of you that are subscribers, you'll get an invite to the Slack. And then I'll do live streams on usually Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays, where we'll look at specific trades and I'll talk, you know, potential areas to look at for like stop losses and targets and all that. Kind of like how I'm doing here. Okay. All right. I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and just end it there, call it a stream. Thank you guys for being here as always. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Don't look at the screen too much. Take at least 1 hour off a day. And until next time, take care, everyone.